Difficult Conversations: How to Discuss What Matters Most, by Douglas Stone, Bruce Patton, and Sheila Heen. Introduction. Imagine this. You get a call late one afternoon from a good friend, let's call him Michael. He's in a tight spot. He needs a financial brochure designed and printed by the next day. His usual designer is out, and the pressure is on. You're swamped, but he's a friend. So you drop everything. You cancel your dinner plans, you stay up half the night, and you get it done. By noon the next day, the printed brochures are on his desk. You're exhausted, but you feel good. You helped a friend. Then, you get back to your office and find a voicemail. It's from Michael. And the message starts like this: "Well, you really screwed this one up?" He goes on, his voice heavy with disappointment. "The earnings chart isn't clear enough. It's slightly off. It's a disaster. This is an important client. I assume you'll fix it right away. Give me a call." How do you feel? Angry? Hurt? Underappreciated? You call him back, your stomach in knots. And the conversation that follows is tense, frustrating, and it ends with you agreeing to redo the work, feeling defeated. Months later, the friendship is still strained. You keep replaying it in your head, wondering what you could have done differently. We have all been there. Maybe it wasn't a brochure. Maybe it was asking for a raise, ending a relationship, confronting a disrespectful comment, or just trying to talk to your parents about something that matters to you. These are the moments we dread. The conversations we avoid. The ones that keep us up at night. What if I told you that every single one of these difficult conversations, no matter the topic, shares the exact same hidden structure? And that if you can learn to see that structure, you can learn to navigate these moments not with fear, but with confidence and grace. Today, we're diving into a landmark book born out of the Harvard Negotiation Project, Difficult Conversations, by Douglas Stone, Bruce Patton, and Sheila Heen. This isn't just a book, it's a manual for one of the most essential human skills. By the end of our time together, you will understand the 3 hidden conversations that are happening underneath the surface of every difficult talk, and you will have a clear, actionable framework to transform painful confrontations into productive, learning conversations. This is a skill that will serve you for the rest of your life. So let's begin. Book summary. We all face a fundamental dilemma when we know a tough conversation is needed. Do we raise it, or do we let it go? If we avoid it, we feel taken advantage of. Our feelings fester. We resent the other person, and we resent ourselves for not speaking up. But if we confront the problem, we're terrified things might get worse. We might hurt them. They might attack us. The relationship could be damaged forever. So we look for a third option. We try to be so tactful, so clever, so diplomatic that everything will go smoothly. The authors have a name for this. They call it trying to throw a diplomatic hand grenade, but a hand grenade, whether you coat it in sugar or not, is still going to do damage. There's no gentle way to pull the pin. The authors tell us that this entire dilemma is based on a misunderstanding of what a difficult conversation is really about. We think our job is to deliver a message. To tell them they're wrong. To get them to change. To set them straight. But the real breakthrough, the central idea of this entire book, is to change your purpose. Your goal should not be to persuade, but to learn. To shift from a battle of messages to what they call a learning conversation. And to do that, you first have to understand what's really going on beneath the surface. The authors discovered that no matter the subject, every difficult conversation is actually made up of 3 distinct, hidden conversations happening at the same time. If you can learn to identify and manage all 3, you can navigate anything. The first is the what happened conversation. This is usually what we think the conversation is about. It's the disagreement over the facts. Who said what? Who did what? Who's right? Who's wrong? And who's to blame? In the story from the beginning, Jack and Michael were arguing about whether the chart was a disaster or just a tiny mistake. They were stuck in the what happened conversation. But right there, we make our first critical mistake. We fall for what the authors call the truth assumption. We assume that we are right, and the other person is wrong. Our whole perspective is built on this foundation. You drive too fast. Your comment was inappropriate. The brochure is fine as it is. The problem is, difficult conversations are almost never about the facts. They are about our perceptions, our interpretations, and our values. They're not about what is true. They are about what is important. Jack and Michael both agreed the chart was slightly off. The argument was about whether it mattered. So, the first shift is to move away from proving you're right and toward understanding each other's stories. Your goal is to stop arguing and start exploring. How do they see the world? And how do you see it? You don't have to agree with their story or give up your own. You just need to understand it. The authors call this adopting the and stance. It's the simple but profound idea that two stories can be true at once. I can be hurt and frustrated, and you can believe you are being helpful. My story is valid, and your story is valid. It's not either/or. It's both. The second mistake we make in the what happened conversation is what they call the intention invention. We assume we know the other person's intentions when we absolutely don't. And worse, we usually assume their intentions are bad. If a friend is late, we don't think, I bet they stopped to help someone in need. We think, jerk. He doesn't respect my time. We feel hurt, so we assume they intended to hurt us. The authors use the story of Lori and Leo. At a party, Lori reaches for some ice cream, and her boyfriend Leo says, "Lori, why don't you lay off the ice cream?" Lori, who is sensitive about her weight, is humiliated. She accuses him, "You have this need to control me and put me down in front of our friends." Leo is baffled. He says, "I wasn't trying to hurt you. You said you were on a diet, and I was just trying to help." Lori made the first mistake. She assumed Leo's intentions were to humiliate her. But Leo makes the second mistake. He thinks that because his intentions were good, Lori shouldn't feel hurt. He's so busy defending his intentions that he completely misses her feelings. He doesn't hear her pain. He just hears the accusation. The solution is to disentangle intent from impact. Recognize that your assumption about their intentions is just that, a hypothesis. Share the impact their actions had on you, and then, with genuine curiosity, ask about their intentions. Lori could have said, "When you commented on the ice cream in front of everyone, I felt humiliated. I'm curious what you were thinking in that moment." That opens a door to a learning conversation, not a fight. The third mistake in the what happened conversation is the blame frame. When things go wrong, our first instinct is to figure out whose fault it is. The company loses a client, and a ruthless game of blame roulette begins. As long as the ball doesn't land on us, we're okay. Blame is about judging and punishing. It always creates defensiveness. Think about two kids in the back of a car. When you ask who started it, what do you hear? "She hit me first. But he called me a baby." They are defending themselves from judgment. The authors urge us to shift from blame to contribution. Blame is about looking backward to judge. Contribution is about looking forward to understand and change. The question is not, whose fault is it, but how did we each contribute to this situation? Think about the story of the botched presentation. Your assistant packed the wrong storyboards, and you blame her. It was her fault. A conversation focused on blame would involve you telling her how she messed up. She would apologize, feel terrible, and you'd both move on, but the underlying problem wouldn't be fixed. A contribution conversation would sound different. You might start by saying, "Let's retrace our steps to see how this happened. I suspect we both played a part." Your assistant might then say, "Well, the last time I asked you which boards you wanted, you got angry because you were busy. So this time, I was trying to stay out of your way." And you might realize, "Yeah, I am often impatient when I'm under pressure. And I usually double-check my briefcase, but this time I was so overwhelmed I forgot." Suddenly, you're not a victim and a villain. You're two people in a system. You were unapproachable. She made an assumption. You both contributed. Now, you can actually solve the problem. You can agree that she should always ask, no matter your mood, and you can agree to work on being less impatient. This is how real change happens. And that brings us to the second of the three hidden conversations, the feelings conversation. Difficult conversations are not just about feelings. The authors say they are, at their very core, about feelings. Engaging in a difficult conversation without talking about feelings is like staging an opera without the music. You'll get the plot, but you'll miss the entire point. But we often try our best to frame feelings out of the problem. We think it's messy, unprofessional, or just plain risky. If I share my feelings, I might get hurt. What if they dismiss them? Or what if I hurt them? And then I'll have to listen to their feelings. It's just easier to stick to the facts. But unexpressed feelings don't just go away. They leak into the conversation. They come out in our tone of voice, our body language, our sarcasm. Or they burst out. We don't explode because we express our feelings too often. We explode because we express them too rarely. Like a shaken soda can, the pressure builds until it's a mess. Unexpressed feelings also block our ability to listen. It's hard to be curious about someone else's story when your own internal voice is screaming, "I'm so angry," or "I feel so disrespected." So, what do? First, we need to find our feelings. And this is harder than it sounds. Often, we translate our feelings into judgments, attributions, and accusations. A statement like, "You are so thoughtless," isn't a feeling. It's a judgment. The feeling underneath might be, "I feel hurt," or "I feel unimportant." The first step is to learn to identify the actual feeling. A simple trick is to start your sentences with "I feel." It forces you to name the emotion. But you don't just vent whatever you find. You have to negotiate with your feelings. Your feelings are based on your perceptions. As your perceptions of the what happened conversation change, as you get curious about their story, their intentions, and their contribution, your feelings will start to shift as well. Your anger might soften. Your hurt might become more manageable. Then, when you express them, you share the full spectrum. You don't just say, "I'm angry." You might say, "When you do that, I feel angry, and a part of me also feels hurt, and a little bit confused." This complexity invites them into a real conversation, not a battle. Finally, you must acknowledge their feelings. This is a step you cannot skip. You don't have to agree with them. But you have to let them know you hear them. When someone shares a feeling, they are asking a set of invisible questions. Are my feelings okay? Do you understand? Do you care? A simple acknowledgement? "It sounds like that was really frustrating for you," or "I can see why you'd be hurt," answers those questions with a yes. It lets them know they've been heard. And only then can they begin to hear you. This brings us to the third, and perhaps most subtle and powerful, of the three conversations, the identity conversation. This is the conversation we are having with ourselves about what this situation means to us. It's all about who we are and how we see ourselves. Asking for a raise isn't just about money, it's about whether you're valued and competent. Admitting a mistake isn't just about the error, it's about whether you're a good person. Breaking up with someone isn't just about the relationship, it's about whether you're a cruel person who hurts people. Difficult conversations threaten our identity. And when our identity is shaken, We can have what the authors call an identity quake. We lose our balance. We might feel a rush of anxiety or anger. We might stammer, get defensive, or just shut down entirely. We stop being able to listen or think clearly because we're too busy having a private, internal crisis. The biggest reason our identity is so fragile is that we tend to engage in all-or-nothing thinking. I'm either competent or I'm incompetent. I'm a good person or I'm a bad person. There is no in-between. This leaves us with only two terrible options when we receive negative feedback. The first is denial. If I think of myself as a brilliant person who never makes mistakes, and my boss tells me my work was sloppy, I have to reject that feedback to protect my identity. My boss doesn't know what he's talking about. He just doesn't appreciate my genius. Denial requires a huge amount of energy and, sooner or later, our story becomes impossible to maintain. The second option is exaggeration. If I'm not perfect, then I must be completely worthless. My boss says my work was sloppy, and my internal voice says, I'm a total fraud. I knew it all along. I'm probably going to get fired. I'll never amount to anything. We let one piece of feedback define our entire being. The solution is to ground your identity. And this starts with moving away from all-or-nothing thinking and accepting your own complexity. You need to adopt the and stance for yourself. You are not perfect, and you are not worthless. You are a mix of good and bad intentions, wise and foolish actions. You are a work in progress. There are three things in particular the authors say we need to accept about ourselves. First, you will make mistakes. Accepting this doesn't make you weak, it makes you secure. People who can admit mistakes are seen as confident enough not to have to be perfect. Second, your intentions are complex. You are not always motivated by pure, angelic intentions. Sometimes there's selfishness, fear, or a desire to avoid conflict mixed in. Being honest with yourself about this makes it much easier to stay balanced when someone questions your motives. And third, you have contributed to the problem. This is often the hardest to accept, especially when you feel like the victim. But as we saw, contribution isn't about blame. It's about empowerment. You may not be able to change other people's contributions, but you can always change your own. And by changing your own behavior, you change the entire dynamic. So, you've done the internal work. You've walked through the three conversations in your own mind. You understand your story and you're curious about theirs. You've found your feelings. You've grounded your identity. Now, how do you actually start the conversation? The authors offer a brilliant and simple technique. Begin from the third story. The third story is the story a neutral, outside observer would tell. It's a story that describes the problem as a difference between you, without judgment. Let's say you and your roommate disagree about dirty dishes. Your story is, you're a slob. His story is, you're a neurotic neat freak. A fight is inevitable if you start from either of those places. The third story would be, you and I have different preferences about when to do the dishes. That's it. It's a description of the difference, and it's a story you can both agree on. You could start the conversation by saying, it seems like we have different ideas about how to handle the dishes. I'd like to understand your perspective and share mine, and see if we can figure out a way to make it work for both of us. You've described the problem from a neutral place, and you've invited them to be your partner in solving it. You haven't blamed them. You haven't attacked them. You've made it safe for them to engage. Once the conversation is going, your job is to lead. This doesn't mean you control it. It means you guide it toward a learning conversation, even if the other person is stuck in blame or accusation mode. You do this through three powerful moves. The first is reframing. You take what they say and translate it into the more helpful framework of the three conversations. If they say, "This is all your fault," You reframe from blame to contribution. I'm sure I've played a part in this, and I think we both probably have. Instead of focusing on fault, I'd like to understand how we got here together. If they say, you intended to hurt me, you reframe to disentangle intent from impact. I can see that what I did hurt you, and that wasn't my intention. Can you tell me more about how you felt? The second move is the most important one of all, listening. No matter what is happening, it is always a good time to listen. When they get emotional, listen. When they attack you, listen to understand what's behind the attack. You cannot move the conversation forward until they feel heard. And they won't feel heard until you listen with genuine curiosity. And the third move, for when you're really stuck, is to name the dynamic. You make the problem in the conversation itself the topic. I'm noticing that every time I try to share my perspective, you interrupt me. I'm feeling frustrated because I don't feel heard. I really want to understand what's so important for you to say, and then I want the chance to finish my thought. Naming the dynamic can clear the air and get things back on track. Ultimately, by understanding each other's stories, feelings, and identity issues, you open the door to real problem solving. You can invent creative options that meet both of your needs. You can look for fair standards to resolve your differences. And even if you can't agree, you will have managed the conversation in a way that preserves, and often strengthens, the relationship. Because you've sent the most important message of all. Even when we disagree, I care about you, I care about your perspective, and I want to understand. And that is the foundation of every healthy and lasting relationship. Commentary. When you first encounter the ideas in difficult conversations, it can feel a little overwhelming. 3 conversations: Heen stance, contribution, reframing. It seems like a lot to remember in the heat of a stressful moment. But the beauty of this book is that it's not about memorizing a list of tactics. It's about a fundamental shift in your entire posture. It's about moving from a state of knowing to a state of learning. From a state of certainty to a state of curiosity. The most profound lesson for me is that difficult conversations are rarely about what they seem to be about on the surface. We think we're arguing about the dishes, or the budget, or who is supposed to pick up the kids. But we're really having a conversation about respect, or love, or competence. We're grappling with our feelings of being unappreciated, or our fear of being seen as a failure. This book gives us a map to that hidden territory. It teaches us to look underneath the words to find the real meaning. And in doing so, it gives us power. Not power over the other person, but power over ourselves. The power to choose how we respond instead of just reacting. The power to stay grounded when our identity is shaken. The power to transform a potential battle into an opportunity for connection and growth. This is not easy. It takes practice. It takes courage to be vulnerable, to admit your contribution to a problem, to share how you're really feeling. But the reward is immeasurable. It's the difference between relationships that are brittle and constantly at risk of breaking, and relationships that are resilient, honest, and can withstand the inevitable conflicts of life. So how can you start putting this into practice today? Here are 3 simple things you can try. First, just observe. The next time you find yourself in even a minor disagreement, don't try to fix anything. Just listen to the conversation in your head. Try to spot the 3 conversations. What's the what happened story you're telling yourself? What are you feeling? And what does this situation say about your identity? Just becoming aware is a huge first step. Second, practice the and stance in a low-stakes situation. The next time someone has a different opinion, instead of saying but, try saying and. For example, I see your point that we should save money, and I also think this experience would be a valuable investment. Feel the shift it creates, both in you and in the other person. It moves you from opposition to collaboration. Third, try starting one small, slightly difficult conversation from the third story. Maybe it's with a parent, a friend, or a sibling. Instead of launching into your complaint, start by describing the difference. It seems like you and I have different ideas about my curfew. I'd love to understand your concerns, and also share my perspective. See how that changes the entire tone of the conversation? These are not just communication techniques. They are a way of being. They are a commitment to understanding before being understood, to choosing learning over fighting, and to recognizing the complex, imperfect, and shared humanity in all of us. That was a summary of Difficult Conversations by Douglas Stone, Bruce Patton, and Sheila Heen. We've certainly covered the big ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary is like looking at a map of a beautiful city. The real magic happens when you walk the streets yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular story or a simple phrase resonates with you in a way you didn't expect. This summary is your map, designed to help you decide if this journey is one you want to take. If anything we've talked about today has struck a chord, I encourage you to grab a copy of the book. Reading it isn't just about gaining knowledge, it's an experience that can genuinely change how you approach every important relationship in your life. The link to the book is in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to continue exploring the ideas in the world's most impactful books, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets me know that we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.